That's definitely an issue. RED is a complex idea, and we have to simplify it. The complex idea is that you can take something that you cannot touch, feel, or see, carbon, which is part of our atmosphere, and make a market where some people buy carbon and others sell it. So it's a very abstract idea, but what it boils down to is that we have to save tropical forests where most of the greenhouse gas emissions from forestry occur. And the more you go to the ground level, the more concrete the activities become. But communicating what needs to be done is a challenge. One way to simplify it and to explain it would be that we need to overcome obstacles both in developing and in developed countries to channel funding into sustainable forest management, build the capacity for sustainable forest management. That is, of course, closely linked with sustainable land use. There's, Mark Twain once said, buy land, they're not making it anymore. And that's still true today. There's a limited amount of land, and there's a growing amount of demands and pressures on it. So sustainable forest management has to be part of a holistic, sustainable land use planning overall that ensures sufficient food, energy, water. And we have the science now and the tools that can help us make these informed land use decisions. So in a nutshell, RED Plus is about improved land use planning and improved land use decision making and improved governance.
And let's be clear here, because I remember at the last climate talks there was a group of quite vociferous Bolivian protesters who were saying, banging their drums every morning as I walked into the conference centre, and they were suggesting that RED Plus projects were stealing their land and putting it into the hands of private investors, private, I guess, anonymous investors who they could never hold accountable. So let's be absolutely clear: is that what RED does, or have they got it wrong?
I certainly hope they've got it wrong, but these are the questions that keep us up here at nights. For example, last night in the contact group on RED Plus safeguards. Safeguards are supposed to ensure that these things do not happen, that there's full and effective participation of indigenous and local communities, that there's clarified land tenure, that RED projects are in line with environmental integrity and that they contribute to the objectives of the Convention on Biodiversity, which, as you know, include the rights of indigenous and local communities. So certainly that is not the intention of RED Plus. Now, we have to all be vigilant that this does not lead to any form of land grab or any form of expropriation, but on the contrary, that we clarify land tenure is one of the key requirements for the success of RED Plus. And the encouraging signals from many countries are that RED Plus, as a catalyst for improving these land use decisions, has already helped to improve land tenure rights, to improve land tenure security, to improve governance. And we need to further promote and encourage that progress in developing countries. And another aspect of Bolivia's position on RED Plus is, interestingly, quite close to what now is increasingly being realized by many RED Plus actors, that when you address sustainable forest management, you will automatically generate multiple benefits. Benefits beyond carbon, benefits ecosystem services such as water, benefits for adaptation, benefits for food, benefits for recreation, for cultural identity. So the multiple benefits aspects are another part of the Bolivian approach to RED Plus.
And it's been clear from this conference that forests are under increasing pressure all around the world. Only yesterday the IUCN released a report stating that I think 83% of Madagascar palm trees could disappear within the next 5 to 10 years. To what extent is RED designed to restore forests as opposed to simply protect what is already there?
There are 5 activities under RED Plus that countries can choose to embark on. It's reducing emissions from deforestation, reducing emissions from forest degradation, and then there's the plus, which can be conservation of forests, sustainable management of forests, and enhancement of forest carbon stocks. Now that's a rather technical term, but it can mean that you restore forest landscapes, that you reforest areas that have been deforested, that you restore degraded ecosystems, and of course it can also mean that you restore forest landscapes and thereby help threatened endangered tree species to rebounds. And I think that the restoration potential of REDD+ has been underestimated, both in terms of the carbon potential, but also in terms of the livelihoods and multiple benefits potential. And there are now efforts underway to meet the CBD Aichi target 15, that we should restore at least 150 million hectares of forest landscapes worldwide. If we do that, the carbon benefits of that alone would be enormous, but what is even more important, there would be huge livelihood benefits.
REDD is clearly an issue which sort of crosses conventions, and the climate convention is clearly big there. How damaging has the CDM, the Clean Development Mechanism, struggles to actually create an effective carbon market been on planning for REDD? Because does it make some investors uncertain about how effectively REDD could work?
When I studied forestry in the 1990s, we all had great hopes for joint implementation and CDM. The hype was actually similar to REDD+, if I can call it a hype. Now, we all know that it didn't live up to its expectations. Regarding forests, CDM overall has been a success story in my view, but not for forests. One of the reasons, and there are many, is that in the end there was no market for credits from forests, because the European countries decided not to buy forest credits at scale. The same danger still looms over REDD. We, first of all, do not know if it will be a market-based or non-market-based or combination of approaches. But if it is a market-based approach, there has to be a market. And I think our focus now should be on kickstarting that to a degree so that at least we can test it. Out of Doha, it will be very useful, the next climate change conference of the parties, be very useful if we had some form of starting signal that financial transactions between developed and developing countries can now take place on a pilot and demonstration level, so that we can see where this leads, that the early movers can move, of course, in line with all the safeguards which we now have from Cancun, in line with the experience we have already made in the UN REDD program and in other pilot demonstration activities. That would be very useful to help us move beyond the CDM, but we can learn valuable lessons from a Clean Development Mechanism, especially when it comes to forests, how to handle the transaction costs, that it should not be at project level but at national level, which will make it a much more comprehensive approach to sustainable forest management. And I think I would say we can draw useful lessons from CDM for REDD+, and we're ready to move on from CDM and focus on this new opportunity, which has, in my view, a lot more potential. But it depends on if there will be a market and or sufficient other non-market-based approaches.